In August 1983, James Brown was performing a high-energy show at the Beverly Theater in Los Angeles. Looking out into the crowd, the godfather of soul spotted a familiar face. He called him up to the stage. It was Michael Jackson. Michael glided onto the stage, executed a flawless spin, dropped his iconic moonwalk, and left the crowd in absolute hysterics. But Michael wasn't done. He leaned over to James Brown and whispered a challenge into his ear. He told him to call up someone else who was sitting quietly in the audience. A rising star from Minneapolis. Prince. Prince strapped on a guitar, played a chaotic raw solo, stripped off his shirt, and accidentally knocked over a massive ceramic stage prop, tumbling into the crowd. It was frantic, it was messy, and to Prince, it was an absolute humiliation. According to those who were there, Prince drove straight back to his hotel, locked himself in his room, and swore he would never let Michael Jackson embarrass him again. This wasn't just a random awkward moment. It was the spark that ignited the most fierce, obsessive, and tragic rivalry in the history of music. Two genius perfectionists, born just 2 months apart in the same Midwestern summer of 1958. They redefined what it meant to be a superstar. But behind the glitz, the chart-topping hits, and the legendary dance moves lay a quiet, bitter psychological war. A war fueled by corporate greed, deep-rooted insecurities, and a mutual obsession with absolute dominance. This is a story of how Michael Jackson and Prince pushed each other to the absolute limits of human creativity, and how that very same rivalry ultimately took a devastating toll on them both. To understand why this rivalry cut so deep, you have to look at where they came from. They were two sides of the exact same coin. Michael Jackson was a child prodigy, raised in Gary, Indiana. He was molded under the strict, uncompromising hand of his father, Joe Jackson. Michael didn't have a childhood. He had a boot camp. Every step, every note, every smile on stage was rehearsed until it was flawless. By the time he went solo, Michael wasn't just a singer. He was a precision-engineered entertainment machine. He wanted to be loved by everyone. He wanted to be the biggest star on the planet, period. Then there was Prince Rogers Nelson. Growing up in Minneapolis, Prince's childhood was defined by instability and abandonment. Left to fend for himself, he found refuge in instruments. Unlike Michael, who relied on elite producers like Quincy Jones, Prince was a fiercely independent multi-instrumentalist. He could play over 20 instruments fluently. In the studio, he was a dictator. He wrote, arranged, produced, and played every single note himself. If Michael was the ultimate pop perfectionist, Prince was the ultimate avant-garde rebel. Michael wanted your validation, Prince wanted your attention, and he didn't care if he shocked you to get it. In late 1982, Michael released Thriller. It didn't just sell well, it shattered the entire music industry. It became the best-selling album of all time, turning Michael into a global deity. He achieved his dream. He was untouchable until 1984. Just as Michael was coasting on the historic success of Thriller, Prince unleashed Purple Rain. It was a cultural earthquake. The album spent 24 consecutive weeks at #1. The movie grossed nearly 10 times its budget. Prince had the #1 album, the #1 movie, and the #1 single in America, all at the same time. Suddenly, Michael Jackson wasn't looking down at the competition anymore. He was looking directly into his rearview mirror. People close to Michael at the time noted that he became completely obsessed with Prince's success. He kept a chart of Prince's record sales on his wall. He watched Prince's music videos on repeat, studying his movements, searching for flaws. Michael's manager at the time, Frank DeLeo, recalled Michael looking at a magazine cover of Prince and saying, "If I don't watch out, he's going to catch me." This obsession sparked a series of legendary, often bizarre mind games between the two artists. In 1985, Michael co-wrote the charity anthem, "We Are the World." Every major star in music showed up to sing. Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, Diana Ross. But Prince refused to show up. Instead, he offered to send a guitar solo. Michael took this as a massive, intentional snub. But the real psychological warfare happened a couple of years later, during the production of Michael's follow-up album, Bad. Michael had written the title track, Bad, as a duet. He envisioned a historic moment, himself and Prince face to face in a music video fighting for dominance. He invited Prince to his home in Encino to pitch the idea. The meeting was pure psychological theater. Prince walked in, looked around, and immediately felt outnumbered. Michael played him the track. Prince listened quietly, then turned to Michael and said, "The song will be a hit even if I'm not on it." But behind closed doors, Prince was much harsher. He hated the opening line of the song, "Your butt is mine." Prince later joked in an interview, "Who's going to say that to who? Because you ain't saying that to me, and I ain't saying it to you." Prince left the meeting, but not before leaving a strange gift for Michael, a box containing various voodoo items and strange herbs. Michael was reportedly terrified of it, genuinely believing Prince was trying to cast a spell on him. The rivalry had officially evolved from professional competition into psychological paranoia. As the 1980s turned into the 1990s, the pressure of maintaining their legendary status began to fracture both men. The very things that made them great, their relentless perfectionism and isolating fame, began to consume them. Michael Jackson became increasingly trapped inside his own creation, Neverland Ranch. He was chasing a ghost, the impossible high of repeating Thriller's success. Every album had to be bigger, every video more expensive, every tour more massive. The industry began to view him less as an artist and more as a commercial product. The isolation was deafening, and Michael began turning to prescription medication to cope with the physical pain of dancing and the psychological weight of global scrutiny. Prince, on the other hand, went to war with the industry itself. Feeling enslaved by his contract with Warner Bros., he legally changed his name to an unpronounceable love symbol. He appeared in public with the word slave written across his cheek. He began releasing music at a frantic, unfiltered pace, deliberately sabotaging his own commercial appeal just to prove that he owned his art. They were both trapped in different cages. Michael was trapped by his desperate need for public approval. Prince was trapped by his desperate need for absolute control. Yet, despite their differences, they never stopped watching each other. In the early 2000s, Prince attended several of Michael's concerts in disguise. Meanwhile, Michael was known to secretly buy out entire movie theaters to watch Prince's concert films. There was a profound, unspoken loneliness that only the two of them shared. They were the only two people on Earth who knew what it felt like to hold that specific crown. They were bitter rivals, yes, but they were also each other's only true peers. On June 25, 2009, the world stopped. Michael Jackson was dead at the age of 50 due to acute propofol intoxication. The king of pop was gone, preparing for a massive comeback tour that his body simply could not handle. The news devastated the globe, but it struck Prince in a deeply profound way. According to Prince's friends and musicians, when Michael died, Prince went into deep seclusion at his Paisley Park estate. For days, he couldn't speak. He refused to do interviews about Michael, choosing instead to mourn in complete privacy. When he finally returned to the stage, he did something nobody expected. Prince, who had spent decades refusing to cover other artists' mainstream pop songs, began performing Michael's iconic hit, "Don't Stop Till You Get Enough," during his live shows. It was a beautiful, heartbreaking white flag. The war was finally over. But the most tragic twist of this rivalry was yet to come. 7 years after Michael's passing, on April 23, 2016, Prince was found unresponsive in an elevator at Paisley Park. He was pronounced dead at the age of 57. The cause of death? An accidental overdose of fentanyl. The two greatest musical geniuses of a generation, who spent their entire lives running along parallel tracks of fame, creativity, and rivalry, had ultimately succumbed to the exact same tragic fate. Both died alone. Both died under the weight of immense physical pain from decades of legendary performances, and both were taken by the very substances they used to survive the reality of being them. The rivalry between Michael Jackson and Prince wasn't tragic because they hated each other. It was tragic because their obsession with beating one another drove them to heights of stardom that are fundamentally unsustainable for any human being. They pushed pop music, fashion, and visual storytelling into a stratosphere that will likely never be reached again. Michael gave us the immaculate, universal magic that united the world. Prince gave us the raw, unfiltered genius that challenged it. They spent their lives trying to outshine one another. But in the end, the light they created together defined an entire era of human history. And when that light finally went out, the world became a much quieter place. But now, I want to hear from you. When you look back at the definitive sounds of the 80s and 90s, who reigned supreme in your eyes? Was it the unmatched global showmanship of Michael Jackson, or the pure, boundary-pushing musical genius of Prince? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. If this deep dive brought back some great memories or showed you a side of these legends you've never seen before, make sure to hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next musical history deep dive. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.